probably one of the most beautiful sounds I've ever heard, and there's no way I could replicate it. I've written in my book, they were singing to me, so I felt as if I had two heads, two brains. I felt as if they were singing to the other brain as well, and they were thanking us both for doing this work. And it has taken me, you know, much of a lifetime to gain an understanding of what the greys and their associated entities and species are doing with humans at this time, in order to move our evolution forward and prepare us for open contact one day. So let's now look at what this dual soul is. What is a dual soul, and what is its connection to the alien agenda? We can't look at the dual soul without first looking at the intergenerational factor, which most people who look at contact experiences are aware of. So we often hear experiencers saying that there's been several generations in their family, usually not more than 4, I've never heard more than 4, who have been exposed in some way to paranormal events, to psychic things, to contact experiences and memories, to UFO sightings and ghosts, and a lot of things in between. So the Greys informed me over time that they selected genetic lines. They were looking for certain factors. I don't know what those were. They were also looking at the evolution of the soul that is inhabiting human, that was going to inhabit humans, how that soul would match the vibration. They looked at my grandmother, for example, was in the first generation. She was one of the people involved in Auckland and New Zealand in some of the first spiritualist church events and meetings. You know, they did table rapping, and they did you know, Ouija boards, etc., and all of that sort of thing, which we probably frown on a bit today, but which was their way of contacting something greater than themselves and their way of expressing the paranormal. And she used to describe seeing balls of light in her room when she was bedridden and very ill, and said that they would talk to her and they would console her and support her. I wish now as an adult that I could click my fingers and have her in front of me so that I could talk about some of those experiences that she had. The second generation would be my mother's generation, and my mother ended up in her adult life as a psychic artist. She was clairvoyant, so again we have those same qualities being exhibited. I'm the third generation, and I know that I'm part of complex multi-layered programs with the greys and other species. Some people in this generation that they're looking at have the dual soul. Some have a threefold education, so they're receiving education as a soul on craft, as a human on craft, and then the grey entity, the part of the dual soul, can leave the body and attend as well. So they have specific tasks to complete, and one of the main ones is to support the fourth generation of the next ones coming through, who may have had contact within that family unit. The fourth generation would be my son, and they have experienced, as you can see, some of the same things as the third generation, but their education is much more extensive. The tasks they have to achieve in this life are much more extensive, and some are the parents of hybrid children. So moving on now to what the dual soul is. Well, on the left, you have an individual soul. In this case, the soul became Suzy Hansen, and that soul has a source of knowledge that's been acquired through many lives. And that soul is combined with a snippet or a little portion of the grey intelligence or the grey consciousness. And I have seen a grey splitting off a piece of his consciousness. So I saw this spark of light come out of his head and move towards a soul that was floating in the air on board craft, and I witnessed this. The two melded together in a very electric way, and that became the dual soul. So what does this dual soul provide? It provides onboard craft and enhanced human awareness or consciousness, and gives you the ability to tap into the grey consciousness both on the craft and in this life. So sometimes many experiencers who have this dual soul capacity will talk about their instant awareness of something, their instant understanding of something, instant information on something, instant downloads, and this is all part of being able to tap into that otherness that is part of our makeup. I have seen this exhibited on craft before with mixtures of other species, or so you have this souls together that have come together from a past life. For example, in this instance, I watched in awe as an entity's eyes became intense and altered shape, his skull flexed and molded, and his facial features sculpted before my eyes. So one of the entities was showing me the dual soul attachment to the soul, or embellishment of the soul, that he was also working with, and he was doing healing on the craft and was able to access the skills of both of those species through this dual soul feature. I've also seen, know that sometimes experiencers talk about walking out of their body on board a craft as a grey, and leaving the human body just standing there almost like a coat hanging on a coat hanger. Many experiencers describe this, and I describe in my book myself as a 14-year-old lying in bed, and the 14-year-old human lying in bed was unaware of the call, and this is an image my husband's done of this kind of thing happening. Only the grey identity, that part of the human's dual soul, had heard the request to accompany two greys depicted there as balls of light on board a craft. So that part of the dual soul is rising up as a grey and went on board craft to perform healing on humans on that occasion. So the dual soul, human part of the dual soul may have had a past life in an ET civilization. They may have had genetic alterations before birth. They may be part of the hybrid program. They've had an extensive education with the greys in the soul state as a human and as the grey soul identity of the dual soul, and they have access to the grey consciousness. So let's look now at the three waves of souls incarnating on the planet. We're part of this positive agenda for human advancement, because this is not every soul incarnating on Earth who is part of this agenda. It is those who have volunteered, who've heard the call, and who've gone through the process I described before, prior to incarnation. And the catchphrase for this agenda is that this group of ETs are trying to create change from within humanity. They're not here to tell us what to do, or to take over, or to manipulate us in any way. This is all voluntary. It's all you have volunteered for this, and they're trying to change humanity by changing some of us within humanity and raising the vibration and speeding up the evolution, so that we are moving closer and closer to them, to a spot where it is going to be more easy to make open contact with us, and to prevent us from blowing ourselves up as well. So some of you will have heard the three waves of volunteer souls from Dolores Cannon, and I have actually had one or two or three cruel emails from people saying I've stolen her material. This is not actually true. I first introduced the concept of the three waves of volunteers and the dual soul at a conference in Sydney, Australia in June 2007. I presented a minimum amount of the three-wave information, so I didn't want to give away too much at that point. It was right at the end of my speech. You can see there one of my charts. I had several charts to put up, and that's one of them. So I was speaking about this in 2007. Dolores Cannon began speaking about it a few months later. She visited Australia in November and was given a copy of my speech. And in February, a few months later, she began talking about the dual soul on radio shows. And in 2009, she produced the book of the same name with the same information in it. There was no reference to me in it, however. So I just wanted to make this point that it was 2007 when I first brought out this information, and that information was passed on to her. Okay, so the 3 waves of volunteer souls are 3 distinct groups of souls that are here for a purpose. They're part of this agenda. They have specific tasks to do. It's about raising and speeding up our evolution, and in particular, hopefully raising our spirituality as a civilization as well. We are in dire need to do that. But the interesting thing about each of these waves and the information that I'm giving today is Dolores did not have a lot of the information I'm giving today, because I did not talk about this in my speech. It was a very broad overview that I gave. So I'm giving you some of the deeper stuff now that's in my book, and if you want to take it further, there's more information about it in the Dual Soul Connection book. Okay, so the first wave is broken into 2 groups, and both of those groups incarnated at different times. So this is where we've got this really complex, multi-layered thing again. It's not just within the education program that these things are multi-layered and slotting in. It's also in the way that the souls incarnated into this life and how they slotted together and how they assisted the next group or the previous group or whatever. So it's a very, very carefully thought out agenda here. The first wave, the innovators, and I have given them these names based on the descriptions that were given to me by the Greys. So the word I've chosen for the first wave, part of the first wave, is the innovators. So like my grandmother, you've got the people who were in the early part of the century, so 1920s, 1930s, talking about the paranormal, leading groups on the paranormal, being a bit rebellious and a bit out there with some of the things that they were doing at that time. And, you know, use of Ouija boards at that time was very popular, but they were pushing the limits of what we could do with our psychic abilities and our consciousness. And then the enlighteners are the ones who came in later on. So I would say the enlighteners were pretty much what some researchers would call the star kids. But there are some researchers out there who've built the star kids up to be the be-all and end-all that are going to save the planet. But in fact, the star kids are a much smaller part of this larger picture of the 3 waves. And they've come in much later on in the, the 80s, etc., and 90s, to teach us more about our consciousness, expand it just that little bit more. And you often find that these enlighteners are free spirits, they're into crystals, they're into yoga and meditation and all kinds of interesting things that are all considered alternative. And they are showing us what we can do if we extend ourselves in these directions and how fulfilling it can be. In the second wave, we start to get a little bit more serious about the agenda here. The second wave is a finite wave, so it doesn't carry on into the future. The first wave, the enlighteners are going to carry on being incarnating. The second wave is a massive group of hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people worldwide, and it's finite. So once you've incarnated into that, there's not more going to be coming on in the years to come. It's our job to establish certain things and to support the third wave, the next one's coming in. So the second wave's broken into 2 groups, the pioneers. I would say the pioneers are the abductees in general and the early contactees. The contactees had the very loving and gentle communications with human-like looking entities, and they talked about love and light and a new era on the planet that was coming. The second wave is I call the communicators, and that's the experiencers, some of the abductees, and and, you know, some of the people coming forward today who, again, call themselves contactees, which is actually a term that's already taken, but, you know, that's what they choose to call themselves. And the communicators are the ones who are likely to be doing public speaking, talking about their experiences, writing about their experiences, being involved in documentaries or movies or whatever, and out there talking about what they have experienced. Some of those in the abductee group have been extremely unfairly treated. And I know in New Zealand, some of those early abductees who came out and talked about their experiences have now become basically hermits because they were really burnt by the media. So this is a group that's there to prepare the way for the third wave. The third wave is broken into the implementers and the fourth intellect. The third wave started coming in around the 80s also. The implementers a little bit earlier. So some of the third wave now are in their early to mid 40s. The bulk of them are in their late 20s through to late 30s. The implementers are the ones who are going to get into business, get into institutions, into professional positions, and begin implementing things. So begin making plans, making changes, changing our institutions. You'll see that a lot of prime ministers and presidents of countries today are starting to be much younger people. You can see that a lot of professionals are rising to the top very quickly are much younger people. So some of these people may belong to the third wave who are looking to change the old ways of society and find new and better ways of doing things, because our institutions as they are now are crumbling and failing. They are not serving humanity as they used to, and there has to be change take place. The fourth intellect group are some who have been selected out of the implementers. So they have shown aptitude for deep analysis. They are humble. They are highly intelligent. They are highly psychic. They hide, the third wave people hide their abilities. The Greys refer to them as the concealed ones, because not for any suspicious reason, but because the Greys don't want them out there talking about their experiences and their memories in the same way that the second wave communicators have. They want them kept quiet and protected and getting into positions of authority in a positive sense, ready to make those changes. The fourth intellect ones who are selected out because they have specific really great qualities are the ones who are being prepared, who in the future may help implement open contact with ET. They are the bridge. The fourth intellect group selected out are the selected few who can become the bridge with the hybrids on board craft. Okay, so this is just a brief one of the images that I put up during that speech I talked about in 2007, showing how they overlap, how, for example, the first wave are still incarnating into the future. You can see those green lines going out. You can see the second wave is very finite, as I said, and the third wave again is going to keep moving into the future and being replenished, depending how long we take as a civilization to get to the point where we have evolved enough to be able to have open contact with other species. So let's look, we're getting on a bit in time now, so let's look at human advancement and evolution. What is all that about? Well, they are using different ways and techniques and avenues to educate humanity and to bring us into this, enhance us and bring our evolution forward. One of the things that they are doing is they are taking the children, for example. The third wave children have been going on board craft since pre-birth, but once they're born, this is the kind of situation they end up in. This is a bird's eye view of a white table on which I saw my son lying with other ETs. You'll see that they're mixtures. They've got slightly different shaped heads, slightly different eyes, And right from babyhood, the third wave members are taught and to communicate with these babies and to begin to understand their vibration and pick up on their telepathy, because these little little greys left and right are highly intelligent and advanced. And there would be senior greys in the room communicating with these human babies, and I can remember watching this take place and being quite annoyed because the grey was able to pick up communications from my son, and I'm his mother and I wasn't able to do that. So my nose was a little bit out of joint when he said that he'd had a conversation with him. But mothers do, of course, pick up psychically on their children, I guess, mother's intuition. But this is how they communicated with these third wave babies, really deeply preparing them to become very adept in their communications. Now, on board craft, many experiencers will talk about being able to quite easily communicate telepathically, but these children have been taught to communicate at a far advanced level and to process information as the greys do at lightning speed, which we can't do. Also, they're bringing to us advanced medical and healing technology and methods. That's me on the table there, and I've got a beam of light coming down on me that is able to see into my body. And at the touch of a screen, they could make it see organs or the vascular system, the muscular system, or the bones, as is visible there. So we are now developing some of this technology in the beginning stages ourselves. This was 20, 30 years ago that this was taking place on board craft. And when I spoke at the UFO Congress in Arizona, I was able to talk about this, and I had some scientists and medical people come up to me afterwards and give me information about how we are trying to follow this same path. Now, is that correct? We have to ask ourselves, are we following the same path with some of the very advanced technology we're bringing out? Or have we somehow had this information leaked to us through scientists? I think that the latter is also part of the picture, because I've been on board craft and I have seen scientists in a large lecture hall on a craft being given downloads and inserts into their consciousness to do with advanced technology. So they may have then come up with inventions, and this is one of the ways that the ETs can bring our evolution along more quickly by inserting that information into our scientists. That doesn't mean to say that we're not an intelligent race and we can't make great advances ourselves, but if they want to speed it up, then they're going to assist us by providing some information. So they're also teaching us about advanced light technology and physics. So once again, these are becoming evident in our technology, and there's probably going to be a huge amount of technology come out over the next 5 to 10 years that will be gobsmacking, and I think that some of that will also be leaked technology. Consciousness assisted technology is something that we are developing ourselves, where, for example, a disabled can move a cursor on a computer screen and are able to use a computer in that way. But consciousness assisted technology is everywhere on their craft. Almost everything, you need consciousness to operate it. And I've also said in other speeches that if you don't have a level of spirituality that melds with or matches that consciousness, then the technology doesn't work. And so one of the points that I've pressed in many of my speeches is that we are spiritually bereft now on this planet. Our spirituality has plummeted to rock bottom in many cases, and until we build that up, we probably wouldn't be able to use their technology anyway. But consciousness is the secret that we have not unlocked yet. And I would imagine that they are preventing us from unlocking it until such time as a civilization, we have matured enough to use some of their technology ethically. They're also teaching us telepathy and interspecies communication, as I've already covered, because this is going to be highly important in the future. And many experiencers have been given the opportunity on craft to experience what the Greys described as pure consciousness, where we watched figures just disintegrate into nothing. The matter transformed into other shapes and other forms, and then formed back again into the form of a Grey. And they said that in the future, humans will be, in the far distant future, humans will be able to do this also. They're helping us with our understanding of our planet and our environment. There are some pretty terrible things happening on the planet at the moment. I feel we're on a slippery slope. I don't know how much of that we can recover without something very dramatic happening on the planet in terms of severe weather, or a severe weather event, or earth changes that might bring us to our knees and make us realize that the environment is all we've got. If our planet disappears, we disappear. And also they're teaching us, and experiencers, abductees who go on board, are learning about our place in the cosmos. And this is the ultimate aim, that they can stop us from using nuclear warfare, that they can teach us the damage that we are doing, not just to ourselves, but to other species and other civilizations out there by the use of this energy, and the way that we treat our planet, and the vibe that our planet is taking on as a result of that. And for us to realize as a civilization that we're not alone. We're getting a lot of information coming out of the States now from the Senate and congressional hearings and from the Pentagon. And it has been stated formally that UFOs are real. So now it's going to be that long path now to learning that something is flying them, and that we are not alone, and that there is more out there in the cosmos that we must meet if we are not to become a muddy puddle in the backwaters of the universe. We have to keep moving and expanding our evolution. So through this process of education, this is a quote from my book, Education by the ETs, and the three waves, and the use of the dual soul within this whole process, mass consciousness can be influenced positively. A massive shift in humanity's awareness can result from this intervention. So we're talking about a gentle, subtle, positive intervention. We're not talking about a takeover, but the education that they are offering humanity and offering the millions of people who are probably involved in the three waves process and the overall agenda is going to be a game changer. Those people are starting to come to the fore now, and you're going to start to see some massive changes on the planet. Some for good, some not so good, but that's just part of the process. Okay, I'm just putting these here to let you know that I have two websites, and that you will be able to access those when you look at the YouTube video when it goes on YouTube, and you'll be able to visit them.